Hello. Welcome to English 1 Unlikely Heroes. This is our course overview and orientation to help you as a parent know where we're headed as a class and how best to help your student be successful over the next 32 weeks of classes. Well, just by way of introduction, my name is Christy Massey. I have been doing this for a really long time. I'm actually going into my 24th year of teaching. I started as a graduate from Liberty University and then taught elementary school in a public school setting. That was a disaster. I moved on to middle school. That was a whole lot better. And then even went to get nationally certified with early adolescence English language arts and have been working in that field ever since. After I became a mom, I was hired by Potter School, TPS, to develop curriculum for English 1. And then through that process, I ended up publishing several grammar books with a couple of colleagues. And then had a group here in Raleigh ask if I could take what I had put together for Potter School for English 1 and could I teach that locally in someone's bonus room. And Classes with Mrs. Massey started at that point about 17 years ago. This man in the picture is my husband, Archie Massey. We've been married for over 20 years. He is currently a police officer in Youngsville. He spent about 20 years in Durham, and then about a year and a half ago switched over to Youngsville, which according to him was like moving from Sin City to Mayberry. It's been a very positive experience and he really enjoys it. He also really loves a little bit of homesteading. And so over the last several years, we've gotten more involved in farming, whether it's chickens or pigs or even turkeys. I look out in my backyard and I'm just so surprised to see what it became. Together we have these 4 children. These 4 boys the Lord has given us. Our oldest, Noah, is a junior this year. Our youngest, Joe, is going into 4th grade. Here is Seth, a rising sophomore, and Levi is a 7th grader. They keep me busy. Our house is loud and full of broken things and not anything really pink or glittery or ruffly anywhere. Uh, but it's great. I mean, I wouldn't trade it. We homeschool these guys, and that presents its own challenges and blessings and beauty. And so I feel like I have uh, the view from all the way around. You know, from being a public school teacher, I was also homeschooled from 4th to 8th grade, and then I am a homeschool mom, and I teach in the homeschool community. Just feel like I have a pretty broad understanding of this whole concept of being mom and mom teacher. So I certainly get where that is coming from. So English 1 is a class that I originally developed for the Potter School, and then 17 years ago, some families asked me if I would consider teaching it locally, and then I've just been doing that ever since. So as a parent, what can you expect from English 1? Well, first of all, that this is a cohesive and complete English class. You don't need to supplement anything else, no additional readings or vocabulary study or spelling. People ask me that all the time, but this class in itself will keep your student busy and caught up with all of the English things, and the class itself is complete. Along the way, you'll have lots of step-by-step instruction and support from me for your student, especially in the area of composition and making sure that they get lots of individualized composition feedback so that your student can grow to his or her next best level. I'll meet them where they are and then challenge them up to the next spot. English 1 is a little bit of a juggling act because it requires some time management. We have multiple components to this class. So there's a grammar component, literature component, composition component. And so students will have to learn how to manage those things. And especially in the beginning, and especially if this is your first outside class, students will need help figuring out how best to manage that schedule and accomplish all that needs to be accomplished within the week's time. However, through all of that, this is typically a class that students enjoy. I enjoy being with them. We laugh a lot in the learning process. So hopefully it will be a positive experience for all of us. Our overarching principle to the development of English 1, and then it has just continued throughout the years, is this idea from Yogi Berra where he said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll wind up someplace else. This is true in life. It's also true in composition, and we tend to, if we don't know where we're headed, we end up in a place that may be great, may not be great, and it's hard to know because there's no plan. So our goal, my goal, by the time we get to the end of this class is to teach your student how to know where they're going, especially in the area of composition. Like I said, our course consists of multiple threads. There's a grammar piece, a literature piece, and a composition piece. So the grammar element is based in our text, Grammar the Right Way. This is the grammar book that some friends and I wrote years ago and have continued to update along the way. It's an ebook for download, and that's it in itself. You don't have to print anything, although I do recommend that you print the homework exercises. So they are purposely made without color or graphics on those exercise pages so that they can be printed easily and worked on. It's easier to do that paper and pencil than to try to do that on the computer or looking up and down and, doing that kind of motion. As far as grades for grammar go, the homework exercises are intended to help. And the power just went out. I mean, that really happened. The power just went out. So, but it looks like it's still recording, so I'm going to keep going. There's a massive storm. Of course there is. What in the world? So we'll just keep rolling and see how it goes. Anyway, so there's this grammar piece. Grading will be quizzes and tests. There are 4 of each over the course of the year, but the homework is really just to identify understanding of each topic. There's an answer key at the end of the book, and students are encouraged to check their work after they complete it to be sure that they know what they're doing. And if they don't, to either ask you or to ask me so that they can learn what it is that they need. Literature, we read The Giver, Treasure Island, God Smuggler, and then at the very last quarter of the year, students will choose between Anne of Green Gables, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and The Secret Garden. One of those, not all 3. We'll also have a series of short stories, and we'll work in some poetry as well to kind of get our toes in the poetic waters before we dive much deeper into poetry in English 2. Also, I wanted to address just briefly this idea of using audio text as much as possible. If I could find a free version of the audio of what we're reading, I've linked that. The only thing I couldn't find was an audio version of God Smuggler that can be purchased for about $15. And for those of you that have students that are reluctant readers or that struggle with the words on the page, comprehension is one thing, reading, decoding is another. And as a mom of multiple children with dyslexia, audiobooks have become super useful and valuable in my home. Some parents, some students think audiobooks are cheating. They actually use that phrase. That is not the case. The brain activity that goes on for comprehension, for sentence analysis, for understanding language is the exact same whether the words come through the eyes or the ears. So there are some decoding things that we pick up, space relations on a page. Ideally, a student would read the page and hear it at the same time if there was any kind of struggle. But for my students, they much prefer to just listen, and that is okay too. So just know that audiobooks can be quite effective. And also, if the reading load gets heavy for your student to accomplish, then it may be that audio is the way to go, just to make that a little bit lighter because someone else is doing the heavy lifting. For composition, our focus is patterns and structure. The goal is that by the end of English 1, your student would be familiar with a 5-paragraph academic essay. We don't do a lot of narrative or creative writing because, frankly, that's just not what you're going to find going forward if we're doing any kind of college prep. But the goal of expository writing is to be able to assert an argument and then back it up in a logical and clear, organized way. Our essays get progressively more complex in the subject matter. The formatting is the same. The patterns are always the same. This is something that students will learn that they can depend on, that if I have to write something for an expository topic, I can always fall back on this pattern and find a successful or a tool to be successful in the writing. But the topics themselves will become more complex as we go, starting with a clarification essay, which is just explain why you feel the way that you do about a particular thing. What's your favorite book and why? But by the end of the year, we're actually breaking um, our getting our feet wet a little bit into literary analysis, and we're pulling together multiple uh, characters from the literature that we've read over the course of the year and defining what it means to be a hero. So the prompts get more complex, but the patterns are the dependable piece that always stay the same. So where are parents involved? Well, first of all is the technical knowledge of helping your students, if they don't already know this, with how to use the basic functions of Word. I will send home or send in the files PDFs, sometimes PowerPoint. So that's helpful if you know those. But certainly how to create a Word document, to format it, double spacing, change the font, those kinds of things. And then occasionally, if something happens with Dropbox, you might have to email and attach a document. And then, of course, there is Dropbox, which is our app that should be fully downloaded to your computer. You should see a very small white box icon in the bottom right corner of your taskbar at the bottom of your screen, so that when you click on it, it should pull up, open your Dropbox folders, not take you to the internet. So if you're still having to go online to get to Dropbox, it's not a fully downloaded app. And you really want to have it so that you can access it offline, all the way downloaded to the computer. Also, for organization, as a parent, you're agreeing to follow the weekly take note. I'll show you what that is and how that can be helpful to you, to know assignments and due dates, and just help your student to follow a workable path for them and schedule their time in a way that will work for them. Grading, there is some grading involved with grammar, where I'll ask you to grade quizzes and tests. They're all multiple choice, and I will always provide you with an answer key. But it's for those kinds of situations, I'll ask you just to grade it and email me a score of the number correct. And then at the second draft stage, I ask that parents will give students feedback on their second draft of writing. I will always give feedback on the first draft and get students with the heavy weight done of the big changes that need to be made. By the time they come to you with the second draft, we're looking for those polishing revisions to just finish out ideas. This is content focused more than mechanics focused, so they may need a little help with that too. As far as grades go, grades are kept on GradeKeeper, which is a program I keep on my computer that is not available to parents online at will, like with a Canvas or a Schoology idea. However, I will send out grades weekly or anytime that you would like to request it. It's very easy for me to do, a couple clicks and I can send it on. And then also anytime that we have a major assignment that I finish grading, I'll send out grades at that point too. Those will come by email. Some other policies. Assignments are due before class. Our class starts at 10:45, so your student's work is due by 10:44. In order for it to be on time, it has to be submitted to Dropbox or brought to class if that's what the assignment says to do. Late work is accepted. There's a grace period for late work to be accepted with some deductions for it being late, but that is up to 7 days, so by the next class at the latest. Preferably there's no late work. I try to balance my grading schedule between the classes, and so late work that trickles in is super frustrating. I know it happens sometimes, but if we could avoid that, it would be fantastic. But after 7 days, I won't accept it at all. So if a student needs another day or two, that's totally fine. There may be some points deducted for lateness, but I will still accept it. But after 7 days, I won't. As far as materials, you need Microsoft Word. Please, please do not use Google Docs. I realize that if you've gotten a Chromebook, Google really has pinned you into a corner. If you have another computer anywhere that has Microsoft Word on it, you could start a document there and then send it to yourself and work on it that way through the Chromebook. But when documents start as Google Docs, we start to have trouble with the back and forth process with Dropbox. About 3 or 4 years ago, Dropbox and Google Docs stopped playing nice together. Now I know you can buy a relationship between the two if you want to, or there are some other gymnastics you can do to try to make the two programs interact well. But every time that I have a student that's struggling with Dropbox, it inevitably turns out that those documents started in Google Docs. So if you could avoid that and just start composition pieces in Microsoft Word, it'll be a smoother process for all of us. Everything else is already posted. It's already in a Word document because I'm creating it for you, those weekly documents. And so those you can pull up on a Chromebook, no problem, or through Google Docs, no problem, and print them and use them however. But it's just the composition pieces where you're starting a new document that if it started with Google Docs, it could potentially have some compatibility issues between these two programs. Students will also need an English 1 notebook. 1-inch notebook is fine, where they can cycle some things in and out. And then they'll need section dividers for multiple sections, grammar, lit, comp, etc. Some students work better with a laptop or technology than they do with paper and pencil, and that's fine too. They're welcome to bring that to class. And then for class, you'll need the literature selection that we're currently in so that we can access pages and quotes and things like that, and then also something to write with. Our goals for this class are basically what I've said: comfort and fluency in expository essay writing. By the time we're done, your student will have completed 4 full expository essays over time. So my teaching philosophy is that students become good writers not by writing more, but by writing right. And so rather than doing piece after piece after piece, we do fewer pieces, but they're submitting multiple times to get feedback and tweaking and, hey, let's fix this and let's make sure this is right as we work through each stage of the pattern. So we start in English 1 with 4 pieces. By the time students get to English 3, they're writing 19, not essays, right? In English 3, they write a variety of pieces, but it's 19 pieces. We move at a much faster pace because we've laid this foundation where students are able to do that. They know what to do when they open the document and it's got the blinking cursor. They know the answer to the question, what do I say now? They've learned that pattern. So that's our goal, is that they will develop a comfort level with this kind of expository argument-based writing. Also in literature, that they'll begin to analyze and evaluate text for implied messages, biblical connections. I am a Christian before I'm anything else, before I'm a teacher, before I'm Archie's wife. I'm a Jesus girl, and that is my worldview, and it comes through in everything that I talk about. Now, students don't have to agree with me on all those things. I welcome conversations. It's literature, right? There's room for analysis and different ways of looking at things. We can talk about differing worldviews, but ultimately that's where I'm going to land. And everything that I present is going to be based in what God has to say in his word. We'll also look at author bias, why they're saying it that way, why they're writing it that way, what tool they're using to create that particular effect. Just starting the process of literary analysis that will continue to build on in English 2 and English 3. Also, as far as grammar goes, we're looking to find the connection between grammar and composition. We're not learning grammar just to be like, ooh, I know what a gerund is and I can spell it, right? Like, who cares? Nobody cares. But if you know what a gerund is and then you can use it to add sentence variety, then yay for you. That's great. So the idea on all the way through in all these lessons, so many students have asked me, why do I need to know this? And so I have learned over the years, here's the why: because you get to be in charge of your language. If you understand how our language works, then you get to pick the way the words come together, and you get to decide how your sentence flows. It's not just an accident, So often composition in student writing, in any of our writing, is accidental. You finish it and you're like, whoa, that's amazing. Who knew I could write like that? And then there are those other times you're like, that's abysmal, and who knew it could be that bad? But really, if we go back to that saying at the beginning, if you don't know where you're going, you'll wind up someplace else, right? If we know that, then what we do is learn how, so that we know where we're going, what we want this to develop into, and then we can build that piece. Additionally, we'll begin to analyze and appreciate poetry, just little bites, to get past that, poetry, I don't like poetry, eye-rolling situation. So hopefully we can make that a positive experience for students. And then, of course, to prepare students for English 2, which is the next logical step after this class. So for you parents, I don't expect you to keep track of all the things and everything that we're doing and come to class, although you are always welcome to attend class. There is always a seat for you if you'd like to sit in and listen and participate a little bit here and there as we go through. But you don't have to do that. I realize that's why you're sending them to me, so that you don't have to do that. So that is why I provide this document every week. We call it the Take Note document. It's broken into two pieces, but it's actually all on one document. The first is um, the what we're doing in class today, and the second are the assignments that are due before the next class. The week numbers and the dates will help you keep track of which is which. But this, where it says due before class, this is a reminder of what is already posted here on the submit by, right? So if this was on the Take Note for week 2, on week 3, anything here would be posted here, we're written here to just remind students, hey, remember that you're supposed to have this either with you or put into Dropbox for Mrs. Massey before you come to class. This then is what we're going to talk about in class, the lessons that we'll go over. And then the assignments, notice that they have the little check boxes there for those of us that like to check things off. And it just feels so good to move our way through. But the check boxes are there for students to be able to keep track of what they've completed and what they have yet to do. This print and file box will list again basically what's here in class today. It just lists the documents that are needed for class that should be printed and filed in the notebook in preparation for what we're doing. So these will be notes sheets, it'll be informational sheets that'll say, hey, if you have this printed, take it out. You can mark this up while I'm talking about the assignment or things of that nature. But that's what's in that print and file box. So ultimately that Take Note document posted every week in the folder in Dropbox will help you, parent, know where your student should be, what work should be accomplished, and then what the class is going to talk about, and then looking ahead, especially for that organizational piece. Also, just as a side note, I have all the documents for the year already put together. And so if you know, for example, that you're taking a vacation in October, it is so much easier to work ahead than it is to try to come from behind. So if you know that you're going to be gone, you're going to miss a week or two, then get in touch with me and we can make a plan for how to get that accomplished. I can send you documents early and we can just work that out so that your student doesn't fall behind, because getting behind can get overwhelming pretty quickly. So we have looked at the sample Take Note. Just as a reminder, in Dropbox, when you open your student's English folder, you should see a submitted graded work folder, which is where your student will submit work to me. I will grade it, give feedback, all right there in the same place. And then you should also see a folder that says week 1 documents. Those are the documents that are necessary for class for week 1. So you can print those and file them in the notebook ready for class to begin. So class starts soon. I look forward to seeing you, to getting to know you, to getting to know your student. This is my phone number and my email. Call, text, or email anytime. I'm always happy to help answer questions, clarify, demystify, calm and comforting, whatever needs to happen. I want this experience to be positive for you and your student. So I look forward to meeting with you and meeting with them soon. Thanks for watching.